Daniel and Hannah Klingel would have purchased this property only on April 2nd, 1863. Daniel was a farmer, because we got a 15-acre farm here, but he was primarily a shoemaker. So you can imagine his house, his barn, his outbuildings are full of the equipment he needs to do to make shoes and repair them. And of course, Hannah is a housekeeper. So probably a reasonably prosperous place, but again, just newly purchased. And it sits here on the Emmitsburg Road, one of those 10 roads that radiate out from Gettysburg from all points on the compass. The house itself is not too many feet off of what was a sunken dirt road. Both sides have fences. So I kind of think about what it would be like sitting that close to a dirt road when you're here during the time of the battle. Well, at the start of the battle, I'm sure they would have heard the sound of cannon fire off to the west of Gettysburg. Probably concerned about that, but we know that they didn't leave that day. They are still here on the morning of July 2nd. So maybe getting a bit nervous as they hear the sounds of the battle progressing. And then a little bit later, we're going to have Union troops go by their house. And in fact, on June 30th, 3,000 troopers of Union Division Commander John Buford's cavalry will ride by with their horses and 6 cannons. So think about the dust that would have kicked up as they went past. But considering that we had had Confederate soldiers in Gettysburg just a few days before, they, like the people of Gettysburg, might have felt more secure finally having some Union troops here on the field. All right, so morning of July 1st, early on, they would have seen, there are reports related by soldiers, Union soldiers that marched up here to Gettysburg, of townspeople going the opposite direction, so leaving town and going to the south, and numerous soldiers will talk about that. So that might be the first indication to them that maybe things aren't a little bit safe here. A little while later, Major General John Reynolds, who is a corps commander, basically in command of 3 corps that day, a wing commander, is going to ride by with his staff, and they're going to head into town. General Reynolds is going to go and visit Union Division Cavalry Commander John Buford off to the west of town. A little while later, he's going to come back by here, send messengers down to rush forward the Union Army First Corps. And then a little bit later, John Reynolds himself will, after he's conferred with General Buford, he's going to basically backtrack and stop just a little ways to the north to instruct his staff to break down the fences on the left side or the west side of the Emmitsburg Road, because when his infantry comes up here, he is going to have them cut across the fields at the Cadore farm to make their way more quickly to Seminary Ridge to relieve the Union cavalry that are out there. A little while later, we're going to have the first 3,000 of the Union Army First Corps go past this house. They will have some artillery with them as well. And they'll cut across those fields. And one thing that Daniel Klingel will relate to a Union soldier from this local area many years later is that he heard the sound of the axes as they're cutting down those fences. So we've got the first 3,000 go by. They'll go onto the field that day. A little while later, we will have the remainder of John Reynolds' First Corps arrive, another 2 divisions. There's going to be many more cannons that are going to go by as well. The morning fighting will come to an end, and then just a little bit later in the early afternoon, we'll have 1 division of Union infantry from the 11th Corps come up this very same road and go past the house. A couple other things that Klingel will relate to that Union soldier is that his wife was baking as the soldiers went by, and they're kind of vying for who can come and get whatever she's baking. I think they'll basically pay her whatever she will accept in order for them to get something to eat. And then he talks about how on the evening of July 1st, 14 to 16 Confederate wounded will be brought to the house. So this is after the Union retreat. Not really sure who would have brought them here, because we know Union infantry were not this far south that evening, but perhaps it was John Buford's cavalry who will spend the night just a little bit further down to the south. He talks about how they were placed on the floor of the first story of the house here, and he will give them some water, he will bathe their wounds, and he will go and try to get some doctors to come here, but he cannot get any doctors to show up. What happened with those wounded, I don't know. I've not read anything that indicates they were here. Were they still here on the morning of July 2nd? Not quite sure about that either. But approximately 12,000 infantrymen, 30 cannons and the caissons that go with them, along with 3,000 cavalrymen, not to mention all the associated wagons, horses, and mules that would have gone down this dusty road on July 1st, heading into battle. I think about how stressful that might have been for them to be so close to the battle, even on July 1st, and do they make the decision, do we stay or do we go? And it sits right along the road, which today might be a little more busy than it was in 1863, but certainly not the kind of traffic they will see as the Union Army comes on the field. And so today, sitting on this road that maybe not a whole lot of people travel when they come to the Battle of Gettysburg, they're basically on the outskirts of this battle, not right here in the center of it, but they certainly were the center of attention on July 1st, 1863. So how are they feeling as they see all these soldiers go by their house? So how do you think you would have responded if you were the Klingels living here? Would you stay or would you go? I think about when there's impending wildfires or floods or a hurricane. How do you make that decision? And what would you take with you if you did decide to leave here?